Yesterday, I was speaking with a client about rescheduling her event. This poor woman has had to reschedule now 5 times. They really want to continue their leadership development for women's program. However, there's just so many factors between layoffs and grant restrictions, and of course, the very fact that we want to make sure that the essential services people are able to be available and providing that direct service, while at the same time, we don't know when people are returning to work. It's an incredibly challenging time, and my heart goes out to you if you're one of those behind the scenes folks who are trying so hard to figure out how do we make our organizations run right now. Let me share with you an interesting insight that I think you would find really valuable. She said, in the first half of COVID, I've spent so much of my time trying to figure out, who am I? What am I supposed to be doing? And how can I build in more structure into my world so that it feels manageable? The more I did that, the more life would push against it, and the less likely I were able to find some kind of structure that would work for my daughter and I. Then what I noticed was when I stopped trying to force structure, I started to notice the things that I loved, and that brought joy. I started to lean into it and be curious about that. I noticed that there were things that I haven't done in a long time that I've now started to do again because I had the time. I started to seek alternative ways to find joy, such as doing videos online of painting classes and yoga demonstrations. She said, this homeschooling that initially felt so challenging, now I realize we don't have to make sure my daughter's graduating like a rocket scientist. Instead, what if I sat down with her and I got a chance to see this as my window to her learning style, as opposed to getting all of her work done and making sure I don't seem like a bad mom. And I started to notice all the little things in nature and in my experience that I would normally have missed had I been along a big office tower doing my work. You know what she called it? The Flutter Factor. She said, I've noticed so many things that make my heart flutter that I had completely disregarded, that I thought my Flutter Factor time was over. The things that make your heart flutter, like a new romance, or when you hold your baby for your first time in your arms, or when you move to a cottage, or you go on a vacation. And she said, my heart hasn't fluttered in a long time. She said, I noticed as soon as I stopped trying to structure and force some parameters in my life, I started to be curious about how to experience my life. And my heart is fluttering again. In fact, what she shared with me that I'm so excited to share with you is, she said, never, ever will I allow myself to have a time where my heart doesn't flutter. That will be my first indicator that I need to go back and shift and change something. If my heart isn't fluttering, then surely there must be something that I could do to change that. Because heck, in the middle of COVID, if I can find my heart fluttering, then surely when we're not in the middle of a pandemic, it'll be a lot easier for that to happen. And you know, I really resonate with that. It's almost like the idea of the cocoon to the butterfly. It initially looks so ugly and but then it transforms into something beautiful. I've heard so many people talk about how they're sick of people being so positive and seeing silver linings everywhere. But you know, I'm going to stand for us silver lining people, because that's the only way I know how my heart will flutter too. I spent a good portion of the time at the beginning of COVID rebuilding my business and worried about our finances and trying to manage all of the changes that were happening. And my heart wasn't fluttering very much either. And you know what? I don't think we're doing a service to anyone who's struggling right now by also being stressed right along with them. So let's not apologize that we get a chance to be out in nature, and we get a chance to spend more time with our families, and we get a chance to experiment with cooking, and then we get a chance to eat more carbs, that is, when we can actually get flour in the grocery store. Why don't we do the things and experience the things that make our heart flutter again? If we can do it now, then maybe, just maybe, we can do it always. My name's Sarah McVanel, hoping you always feel like your greatness magnified. And when you don't, remember, we always have resources for you at greatnessmagnified.com.